In his 1867 book, Capital: Critique of the Political Economy, Karl Marx writes, "The accumulation of capital presupposes surplus value. Surplus value presupposes capitalist production. Capitalist production presupposes the availability of considerable masses of capital and labor power in the hands of commodity producers. The whole movement, therefore, seems to turn around in a never-ending circle, which we can only get out of by assuming a primitive accumulation, which precedes capitalist accumulation." Primitive accumulation refers to the historical processes that laid the foundations for wealth accumulation, or capitalism, not through thrift or industriousness, but through violence and coercion. Marx puts it bluntly: capital comes dripping from head to foot, from every pore, with blood and dirt. Nowhere is this more clearly illustrated than in the enforcement of Britain's Enclosure Acts, a series of laws passed in England primarily between the 16th and 19th centuries that privatized once common land, used collectively by rural communities, into the ownership of a wealthy political class of landowners. With the full backing of the state, these new landowners used violence and coercion to drive disenfranchisement, transforming those with customary, ancestral or informal access rights to common lands into landless peasants, no longer legally able to live, farm, and feed themselves in their own communities. This theft, disguised as law, of common and ancestral lands, had profound effects on Britain's rural population. For example, in Northamptonshire, between 1760 and 1810, over 150,000 acres were enclosed through parliamentary acts. These enclosures often displaced the rightful local landholders and a community of common rights users. Villages disappeared overnight as the proletariat, who were unable to afford the legal costs or meet the new fencing requirements, were forced to sell off, abandoning their homes and holdings. Most were forced to migrate to the growing urban centres, such as London, and it was this coercion that caused the swelling of the ranks of the working class. This was the creation of the free wage labourers, who remain essential for the success of capitalism. The Enclosure Act of 1773, for instance, allowed private landowners to initiate enclosure without the unanimous consent of other commoners who used the land. Instead, a petition supported by a majority of wealthy landowners alone was sufficient. Critically, this disregarded the rights of the populace, in many ways mirroring the scramble for Africa that would follow in 100 years. The Enclosure Act of 1773 and the many acts that followed prove Marx's idea of primitive accumulation not as a peaceful evolution, but as a violent transformation of social relations, using law as a tool of oppression and dispossession. And the land reforms catalyzed a continual cycle of wealth and capital accumulation that persists to this day. The British Empire provided a seamlessly profitable transition away from the increasingly dangerous practice of forced enslavement to the relative stability of wage-dependent industrial labor.